What is up, everybody? In this video, we're going to talk about extremely advanced price action, a price action pattern that has to do with double distribution curves on the volume profile and the way the bars move through that. This is called pocket pool, which I know is also a very dirty term. In case you're not familiar with what pocket pool is, I will tell you, even though it has no relevance to this video. Pocket pool, because I know somebody over there is laughing, is when a man puts his hand in his pocket and then he's just fucking playing with his Johnson. You're playing pocket pool. Well, I like to name things dirty things when I trade because, well, I'm a dirty person. So, okay, I take fucking showers here. I'm not that dirty. So we're going to take a look at this advanced price action, and I don't recommend you guys trade this unless you have a lot of experience. However, I recommend you identify what it is so you can stay out of the market, because if you don't identify this, you can get churned out and chewed up and spit out on the other side. And basically it has to do with the way low nodes on RTH profiles get cycled. Because there's times where you can lean on a low node and it's a great place to take a trade. However, there's times where these low nodes get filled in and chopped up. And that's what I call pocket pool. When that happens, you're going to keep flipping positions and you're going to get absolutely clapped out. And I'm going to show you the pattern, how it works, what it could potentially do, and how to take advantage of it. Actually, I'll show you the P&L right now. So this is my Twitter right here, at RealFatCat1. Come follow me. I write some really good shit. So this is from yesterday, and it's a massive post. So we had a pocket pool scenario set up, and I just churned, and I got spat out on the other end. With fees, it was like 1,800 or some shit like that. So I got shat out on the other end. I just kept churning, and I couldn't get into the play. I knew what was happening, but before I knew what was happening, I was getting churned out. In fact, I've been fucked by this pattern so many times for years and years that I am finally starting to get good. Like, I'm starting to finally figure out how to play it because I've been fucked by it, and this thing continues to happen year after year. So, again, very advanced stuff. However, I happen to have an example from today, so because this is going in the modules, I have to make modules according to when the lesson comes. So let's continue to look at this. This is from today. We recouped the loss on Monday. Again, we was getting kind of churned out a little bit, and then we hit it really good here, and then we flipped position. It's a buy sell. I mean, obviously this got us to break even net. Gross, we were down just a little bit for the size, and then we managed to hit it really well. And it's pretty cool because I actually talk about it potentially. I talked about what it was yesterday, and I talk about where it could go before it hit there. It's not like these patterns always go to destination. However, it's like, well, it probably could. So, and it actually overshot. So let's look at pocket pool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a chart here. Alrighty, guys. So this is a 30-second chart. This is from today, November 14th, 2023. So let's look at the profile as the market was essentially opening. It was ripping up. We had CPI today, and the market just put in a 168 tick rip, which is pretty crazy. No comment on that. Anyways, as the market's going up, you can see that it's making three profiles. There's three distribution curves, right? And what I'm going to do is actually get rid of the value area line on this because it's not accurate. Since there are three curves, the value area is not that. So now that that's gone, let's continue to draw this. So the market rips up. clearly there's a really nice looking curve there. The price action is okay. I have a video on volume profile and mean reversions. I think you guys need to go watch that before you get into this, because this is going to get pretty, again, very advanced shit. So with that being said, we have two distribution curves, really kind of three. The market starts to tumble back in. Okay. So at this point, at this juncture, I'm like, well, fuck, man. Is this going to mean revert back down into this curve, or is it going to play pocket pool where it fills in the middle point? And what happens a lot of times is these profiles have two distribution curves, such as you see here. And then as the session goes on, the bars actually fill in. So, you know, traditionally it's like, you know, I could lean and short that low node. Well, it doesn't work. It overshoots, then it comes in, and then it doesn't work. It's chopping in there, and then it doesn't work, and then it comes down and it doesn't work, and it doesn't work, and then it fucking doesn't work. And the profile, as the time goes on, notice how the bars start to fill in that middle section, which, what does it become? The volume point of control. So it went from two distribution zones to really one. Yes, I know there's kind of a distribution zone down here as well, but in the context of what's going on up in this region, two curves. And right down here, it actually pivots off near the low node down there. So it's going to do one of two things. It's either going to play pocket pool, or it's going to fucking pivot it. Now, can it be a little sloppy, and can it blur the lines between the two? Yes, it can. But as you can see, the price action on this low node is vastly different than the way it just kind of clean pivoted down there. So traditionally, that's what, you know, leaning on low nodes, I think, is a great idea, because you want mean advantage, you want range advantage, which I talk about in the modules of, you know, my course. And again, this is going in there. So if you like this, watch the whole playlist. That's not the right fucking screen. So let's continue to, like, just kind of look at this thing. And then there it is. It's now the point of control. That was literally the low node. Okay, so let me pull up my very advanced whiteboard here. So let's talk about the price action when the market is cycling and doing something I call pocket pool. So what we got is our two profiles right here. So we're double distributed, okay? So there's your point of control. There's your point of control. Okay. Let's get, I hope you guys aren't colorblind. Let's get purple here. That's value area high, or low, value area low, value area high. Now, what I want you guys to understand is this curve, these value areas are wrong. So it's technically the blue on here, but that's measuring all the volume. What would happen is if we took the profiles, and this is why I cut the profiles up often, you would see that the value areas are right here and right there as well. So let me go ahead and erase that and bring in this, the one that actually has the lines. So essentially, this is what you're looking at, okay? But it's really hard to see that there is a low node because they're staggered, right? We just staggered the profiles, so it's really hard to see, hey, there's a low node between those. That's why, in my opinion, it's good to have it like this. And again, these value areas are wrong. So let's go ahead and, again, erase the actual lines themselves and go ahead and drag this over. So hypothetically speaking, you know, you're looking at a value area low here, value area high, value area low, and then there's your low node right there, okay? So this is what we're looking at. So what's going to happen is your price action, it's going to be doing whatever the fuck it's doing. And this specific circumstance is doing something like this. So what's going to happen is the price, when it plays pocket pool, it's going to come down here and it can get really, really sloppy. And what's going to happen is it's going to maybe eventually hit the point of control. So it hits the point of control. And then what it'll do is it could hit the point of control here. And then it could get real sloppy and churn in the middle. And then it could hit the value area low, which would be this purple line down here. And then hit that purple line there as well. It's what you need to understand, and let me erase this, is when you start to notice that this low node isn't holding, it's going to probably pivot both points of controls, okay? Now here's the thing, if it pivots this point of control clean, it's probably going to overshoot this point of control. So if it gives a good clean pivot, like to the tick almost, it's probably going to overshoot this point of control here. So, because it's very, very rare that it pivots both points of control cleanly. Okay, so I told you this would be very advanced. So, be on the lookout for that. Now, it could have a sloppy pivot where it kind of overshoots a little bit, and then it could come in and pivot clean there as well. But also what could happen is it could start to pivot the value area high, or value area low, I should say. So let's actually do this. So I erased everything. Let's go ahead and redraw. So what it could do is it could start to cycle between these two value areas. It could cycle. Now pretend this is like coming from down there or some shit. So it could cycle these value area lows like so. And then when it's kind of like in the middle like this, it could go either way. Like, this is why, like, my P&Ls you saw look the way they did, because it just kind of becomes like a crapshoot. It almost becomes 50-50. So what I want to see is I want to see really that clean pivot. And when it starts to come back in, I want to make sure it's not really going to hold this low node, because it could hold that low node and then go. It most definitely could do that. So I want to really see signs that it might start to come out. And in this specific circumstance from today's trades, only ES was playing pocket pool. NQ was not. NQ was pretty much a full curve, which you're going to see in the trade example. And Russell was not really playing pocket pool either. So this is why correlations are so important, because that helped me kind of determine the direction on this specific setup. Now, if all three are playing pocket pool at the same time, that could be a different story. So I want to really see, you know, in this circumstance, it's like, okay, it pivoted there, it pivoted here, which is value area low, value area high, and then it hit the POC, which we call a mid-roll, right? MRX1, which I talk about mid-rolls quite a bit. If you watch the A+ video, I talk about mid-rolls in that, which it's not part of the modules. And then I also talk about mid-rolls in the in this more recent video here as well called Top Ticks, which I think the top tick video is very, 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 very important to understand that, because this complements that in some ways. Okay, so going back to what we're looking at, this would be like a mid-roll 1. Good to know, because it mid-rolled that profile, and if there's already a prior range there and it came down, well, then it's mid-rolling that prior range. So what's happening is you have two auction processes going on at roughly the same time. So these two curves are their own auction processes. They're their own auction cycles. They're their own prior value areas, which I talk about in the range. And what's happening is it's cycling between the two at roughly the same time when it's playing pocket pool. And as it's cycling both of them, the top one and the bottom one are kind of in their own phases, and then eventually one of those will pop and let go. Now the thing is, when you looked at the chart from earlier, which I'll pull up real quick here, the thing is, it does eventually pop this upper one right here, but eventually it comes back in, and then it just range expands. So originally there's an upper range and a lower range down here and here, and they kind of sync up, and then you have your upper range. So these are micro auctions. At this time, these are both their own auction processes. And at some point, it just range expands, and then you get a bigger distribution curve, a bigger volume profile. This is stuff nobody talks about, like, because I don't think anybody really knows. This is like a lot of things on volume profiles, so basic and elementary. I mean, there's more to it to really take advantage of this stuff. And then eventually it cycles the whole fucking thing. And we're going to look at that more. So again, like, I really want to know, you know, especially with the correlations at this juncture, you know, are we going to fucking pivot that low node? Or are we willing to cycle? Now, if it's really starting to cycle in this region, like if it's really starting to cycle in this region, what's going to start to happen is this. Is like this right here, this profile is going to start to get more filled in. Like that, and then it's going to start to get more filled in as it's continuing to cycle here, okay? And as it gets more and more filled in, that low node is kind of like really not there. I don't know why this is not erasing everything. So there you go. So that's, now it's not really looking like a low node anymore. So I'm starting to realize, hey, we're in the middle of a range, and typically you don't want to be trading middle out. That's why I said, guys, don't trade this, just identify what it is so you can get out of the way. Because if you can identify what this is, then you need to be hitting further out. Like, you need to be hitting further edges, because a really big part of my trading is identifying a range before it becomes a range. I want to know, is this the range? Is this the middle of the range, or is this the edge of the range? And typically I can smell that out once I get enough price action. Now, there are times where I'm not quite sure, and the earlier part of the P&L from today's session reflects the uncertainty. And this is a disclaimer. I know what this is. However, I'm no expert at really taking advantage of it. I've only taken advantage of it a handful of times. I've been fucked by it more than I've taken advantage of. However, as my trading knowledge grows and the more I see it, the more I really start to understand it. And I always knew there was a way to take advantage of it. However, just dealing with it so many times, I'm really starting to figure that out. And I'm hoping to cut down on so much trading, because at this point in my trading career, as I attempt to trade this, there's a lot of this little getting fucked up. I'm up, I'm down, I'm up, I'm down, I'm up, I'm down, and I'm on both sides of the 0 line on the P&L being flat, you know, break even. And I need to figure out how to get rid of that, which I'm pretty confident I know how to get rid of that. So this video, I would say, is coming out a bit earlier and I need more samples. However, since this pattern happened 2 days in a row, we fucked it up the way we were supposed to, and we did what we needed to, and we did well today. So I'm pretty confident that I know how to handle this shit. I just want to put that disclaimer out there so you guys understand why, in my opinion, I think you should avoid it. However, I've always identified it and used it to avoid areas. So if you know where not to trade, that is risk management, okay? So as she's filling in right there, I know I got like the key pivots. Like I got the pivots where I want them. Here, you know, here, and then on the point of control up here. So at this point, since this is kind of like the top tick, bottom tick video, I recommend watching that. Remember in that video, I tell you, if the last thing that happened was a top tick, then there's a good chance it's going to go to the other side. If the last thing that happened was a bottom tick, there's a good chance it'll go to the other side. Not always. However, that same principle and circumstance starts to apply here, but you want to look at it from the perspective of hitting the higher nodes on these distribution curves. Okay? So hitting the higher nodes on the distribution curves. And once I know I got that high node pivoted, and then we kind of got the value areas pivoted, it can do it in all different ways, just like the top tick, bottom tick video. Those top tick, bottom ticks can come in all sorts of arrangements, and they can V out and all sorts of stuff. So the nuance and the ebb and flow of it is very dynamic and fluidy. Same thing here. However, we can use that information to generate a trade, much like a top tick, bottom tick. So once I see that I'm going to get short, and then I'm going to ride it to the point of control. So on these trades, you want to take them at the point of control, which you're going to see in both examples. The second trade, the recording goes down, but you get to see some of the entry, and you get to see me sitting in it. So if this doesn't make sense, watch the whole video twice, 3 times, because you need to see the example. And once you see the examples, then you're going to want to maybe watch it again to really like understand this, okay? So let's get rid of that. Now that we know how that works, let's go ahead and just sort of look at this price action bar for bar, and then we'll go ahead and look at the recordings, okay? I should keep my pen on me so I can mark shit up. Okay, so let's go ahead and zoom in and just really look at this thing. Look at where I've made trading decisions. Alrighty, guys, so these are roughly where our value areas are. So what I'm going to do is delete the lines. So just kind of know, like, you can guesstimate where 70% of the volume is traded. So you don't really need that to see it. And I accidentally deleted that. All right, so we kind of want to look at this thing like bar by bar at this point. So this curve is a little wonky because it has like... It has 3 like humps in it. There's a hump there, there's a hump there. So this almost has like its own fucking thing going on. And as you can see, it's like getting stuck in certain sections. This goes up to the low node here, and then it pivots the low node in this section at that time. So, you know, let me double check to make sure that is the case. Oh, Yeah, it is. However, I wasn't quite sure because of how the other stuff was set up, and then yeah, and then it comes in, and then this profile really is looking like shit in this section as we kind of put in the price bars. She comes down, and it's like, well, what is it doing? Is it going to keep dumping? Because it's CPI, and we went up so high, and now we're dumping and slipping. And is it a reclaim? And the volatility is so atrocious at this point that when the volatility is really bad, it's going to have this goofy climb. Like, see how it kind of just channels up like this? Like you have like this channel. The market's gonna move where the bars are gonna be really like have this noise, but you can't look at it as noise. You need to look at it as like one thing. So like, because there's a lack of volatility, the market is barely moving, barely churning out two ticks, really getting stuck. So it's atrocious volatility, and you can get in a lot of trouble if you're not hitting good setups. And that's what happened to me yesterday. Was the average trade went in my favor 4 ticks, and nothing could fucking run. And this is why volatility is a blessing. So like, it's like I gotta really, you gotta really understand what these setups are, and in low volatility you need to find really good setups and really know how to lean on them and not paper cut yourself too much. Whereas when you have high volatility, paper cutting is encouraged and it's more forgiving. So that's how you have to adjust between those types of conditions. Now, this is one of those environments, and the reason it's like low volatility is there's a lot of higher time frame participants trying to move size, but they're not trying to put in too much size because they know the market makers are going to pull the bids and offers, and you're going to get a lot of slip and reclaim. They weren't. It seemed like a lot of the participants were just slowly feeding shit in, not to spook the market making algos, so they could get all the size stuffed in. So she starts to do this thing, and it's like, well, is it going to pivot this low node? Could it pivot the low node here? So what I actually want to do is take a low node and put that red line there so we know. Is it going to pivot there? And it's not. And I start to have some troubles in this region. And this is exactly where things get kind of fucking weird. So what happens is, at this point, she kind of pivots the value area low right here. So we do get a value area low pivot to some degree. Was that 12? I was more so looking at 12. For me, 12 would be value area low. So let's actually do this. So like, the whole recording is on Coffee, by the way. So if you go to link in the description, go to my Coffee page, and it's broken up into 2 parts. And you can watch the narration of that. But we're going to see a snippet of it. But I was calling out 1250 in that narration episode as the value area low. And it also kind of had this high node here. But for me, it's like, well, that's kind of value area low somewhat. I think they can pivot it, and it's kind of a high node. And keep in mind, as I'm doing this, the other markets are doing other things as well that we can't see, which is, making or breaking what's happening here, or assisting some of this price action. So they come down in that pocket, and now they're just churning it. And for me, I'm like, well, fuck, they're going to... At this point, they churn it so much that I'm like, they're going... This is probably pocket pool. They were channeling up. They broke it. Today might be an updrift day. So on trend up days, you don't get a traditional sideways range like this, which we actually happen to get today, but a lot of times on uptrend days, the range is kind of racked and it's more of an up channel. It doesn't have that rangy, traditional rangy look like we have now. So at this point, I'm like, you know, they could play pocket pool, but it is an uptrend day. They could keep ripping it up. So either way, we're going to go ahead and play the pocket pool because to me, I think they're going to cycle this up curve. So, and also down here as well, and I didn't point that out, but let's drag this back and let's pull up our fucking pen. So you can see they kind of go up in the past the low node here. They're bouncing off value area high right here, which would be roughly in this section. So this curve is very POC heavy on the upside. The POC is not directly in the middle. So we need to account for that. And for me, the value area high is roughly in this region. More like here, I would say, which is where it pivots in this region right here. I mean, that's how fucking nuanced it gets. So they're walking it up. They pivot the 12s here. So remember what I showed you in the drawing? We have a check mark. Where we pivot the value area low, the value area high, okay? Now, it kind of jerks into the POC right here, and it kind of does pivot it right there as well. In this bleed out, I know it overshoots, but it kind of does it. But also, we're coming from the downside up, okay? Much like the top tick, bottom tick video, we're coming from the downside up. So if we're coming from the downside up, and this is a pocket pool setup, then at some point we're going to hit the upside. If the last thing's a top tick, it should go to the bottom side. If the last thing is a bottom tick, it should go to the upside. Now this isn't top tick, bottom tick, but the same principle and theory applies. So we're coming from the bottom side up. So as this is happening, you know, the last thing we get is this rotation up here, right? That's the last thing we get. Kind of have the two rotations down here, and then we're coming from there as well, right? So as we're coming up, we start to churn out in this section. Okay, it's got to churn out. Since we got the value area high pivot, I'm pretty confident they're going to hit the POC. And in the footage that you can watch on Coffee, I talk about scaling there, but I'm actually anticipating a bit of overshoot where it kind of goes a few ticks higher up into this section. This one happened to, this is where I kind of fuck up a little bit. This one happens to actually pivot the high node like to the tick. So if we do that, let's move this pink line up. It hits the high nodes to the fucking tick. And then I start to notice it tumbling in. I'm like, fuck, I need to get out of this. I don't want to give all that shit back. And when I got out, I got to break even. And then, because I was down at that point. And then, once it gets up in this region, I know that it's going to try to gun down this high node. So we get short and we just sit in it. And I'm really confident sitting here. And then I'm really confident sitting in the next section. Because now I've gotten 3 of 4 pivots in play. I got the value area high pivot. I got the value area low pivot. So value area low, value area high. And I got the POC pivot to the tick. So I know they're going to hit this. And when they come in, it does struggle here briefly. I just take it all off because, like, I need to manage my bankroll, which I have a video on bankroll management. You guys should definitely check that one out because that's another element of trading. learning how to balance your fucking checkbook, essentially. So I'm down like 1,800 yesterday, gross, and then I'm down about 400 at this point. So I pull out of this, and then we're actually up a little bit for the week, which I know is not as impressive as some of my past performance. However, there's an old adage, 10% of the time you make 90% of the money. And I'm starting to find that really is true. So a lot of the times it's really not these insane sessions. So sure, it's fun to montage that shit on YouTube and share it and explain those setups because, you know, we want to know why those work. However, we also need to know the nitty-gritty, grueling trades because ultimately these things are either going to make or break you. So it does overshoot. Now, I pull on this one way too, like, late. I didn't even scale, but I didn't give it all back. And then this one, of course it's going to overshoot. Remember, I told you the price action never goes between the two POCs to the tick perfectly. If it rotates one POC perfectly, like in this case the upside, there's a good chance it's going to overshoot because the market is sloppy. The market never just pivots these things cleanly. Yes, it does at times, and in this circumstance, when it does, you can account for a high probability of an overshoot where it goes a little bit further past the high node, which in this case, it went a lot further and I could have done really well today. Oh well, again, this is a setup that I'm really learning to take advantage of. And again, this is more so identify this so you can stay the fuck out of it. And if I was you guys, if you can identify what's happening, and let me go ahead and do that, I would, to be honest with you, you know, if it's starting to get sloppy in here, you take a small loss or whatever, you're getting chopped up a little bit, step the fuck out. Don't attempt to play the pocket pool setup and really wait for one of these extreme edges, either up here or down here to get hit. And in this circumstance, she flushes out hard. I left at this point, so I don't really know what happened, and then off to the races. And then you would have a better chance of leaning on that. So if you can identify that your low node's not working, if you trade low nodes, it's probably filling and it's playing pocket pool, where it's filling in that low node, which is going to probably eventually become a POC. Now, it doesn't always become a POC. However, it can just start to fill it in, and it's not really viable. And in the 3-year profile, I talk about how the higher time frame low nodes, I like them a little bit better, but even those have a lot of nuances. There will be a module. If not, it's not already out. However, those are very nuanced to play as well. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the actual trades. So when you come to the coffee page, I mean, all of these videos are going to eventually get buried. Blue thumbnails are narration, white are prep. That's a DRC episode. You can go to see all to see like everything, which it goes on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever, because there's like hundreds and hundreds of hours of shit, exclusive content. However, let's go ahead and look at part 1. By the way, guys, when we look at this content, all the trades are timestamped. So on the coffee, you don't have to watch an hour-long video. Every trade is timestamped roughly 30 seconds before the trade is put on. So you can literally go through the timestamps and just view the trades really quickly if you don't want to watch the whole thing. However, they're fully narrated episodes. So let's go ahead and look at the second to last trade. Okay, guys, so we're getting ready to place the trade on. It'll help if we can look at the NQ, Russell, and all that shit. So Russell, you can see, and I know it's a bit blurry, Russell's in an interesting spot. You can see that most of the mean is below it, so it could pull back down into this mean reversion area, but it also has some deep pockets right here, like low nodes that can be leaned on to go back up, because this profile is kind of fragmented where is comprised of a bunch of mini curves. We're also hitting a really high EV count. You can't see it, but I think it says 21, but this is a 22. There might be a good chance it could go up. And these are higher time frame low nodes. Again, that's a different module, and we're above them, so there's a good chance it might pull. And also the 3-year point of control on the 3-year profile. And if you want to know about the 3-year profile, it's in the gap jump video. That's a 3-year point of control. That is the highest node in 3 years. So that's going to have natural gravitational pull. Now, it can be a bit sloppy. So Russell's kind of not in the greatest spot. NQ is starting to... It's between two gaps. It's starting to thigh gap. It's far enough away from the point of control that it could start pulling up higher. And there's a little low node here that if it starts to lean in that section, it actually might be good. So, like, everything is not exactly how I would want it. You can see these two distribution curves are starting to get filled in at this point. I realize that the value area high and low has been pivoted, and this will be along to the first POC. So you can see we're going for it. So at this point, because at this point I'm like all over the place on the, and I'll just like play it while I talk. So at this point, I'm like all over the place in the P&L. In this part of the recording, I'm like, I am confident in this. I'm going to hold it. Now, Russell, if you look at the curve, it's kind of on a high noted area intraday, which it's not in the best region. I want, if I'm going to nitpick, I want the price to be above 92.8 on Russell. I want the price to be above 90.50, and I want the price to be above 75.50. People often ask, what do these arrows mean, and how do you get them? The way you get them is you just type in arrow character, and then you copy and paste it into a macro pad. I use a macro pad. These arrows currently are representing, I'm just marking out little tiny low nodes that I could potentially lean on, because this is kind of a more aggressive trade, and I really want to time it just right, because I need mean advantage, because mean advantage is important for me, range advantage is important for me. So we get into it and it gets sloppy. It doesn't do what I want it to. Russell rips up, so the offers are kind of weak, and Russell's cycling from this low node up, which is good. So for me, I'm like, this market could be channeling it up. And if you guys remember what I told you earlier in this specific video, I said you need to look at it as a straight line. And I'm like, this could be channeling up. This could be a drift up. Kind of value area high of this curve, because this curve on NQ starts from here up to here. So we are on the value area high, and it's kind of churning it. So that's kind of a breakout, which could assist ES on the pocket pull. So I'm kind of guesstimating what it could potentially do and how it could hit that POC at that section. So very interesting to see the thought process as it's happening. So let's kind of fast forward this a bit, because this trade does take fucking ages to pan out. Again, churning, but at this point I'm very confident, because it's no longer a low node here anymore. Now it does poop against me a little bit. This is one of those trades that I'm just gonna have to sit in, and out of all the trades I took today, this one I was fairly confident in. So now you're starting to get a break on Russell, which is good. If Russell can get above this 94.6, this will be really, 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 really good for me. Now, maybe I could have waited a little longer. Maybe I got into this a little too early, because I do sit in some churn. Maybe I should have waited for that 94.6. So let's take a look at Russell. And 94.6 will be this low node. So you can see there's a whole nother curve up there. And if it doesn't pivot here and it can start to jump and accept that upper curve, then that's good. That'll drag us up. And again, NQ is near the value area high, and it's near that really low, the lowest node of 1943, which is the lowest node in all this specific section other than up at 79.50. But up here it just starts to taper. So we're sitting in it. Here comes Russell up into the 94.6. And I've yet to review this footage, so from a review standpoint, this is exactly where I probably should have been getting in it. Sure, I'm in it at 950. Sure, I got churn, but it's hitting all my arrows at roughly the same time, which is good because I'll mark out arrows, and you can see more of that in the coffee when you subscribe to that. It's good shit. You'll enjoy it. So when I get the arrows to all align, that is a method for timing. That may be a future module, but I have more shit to cover other than just that timing aspect. So these modules are probably going to take a very long time. It's taking months to get as far as we have, and we haven't even scratched the surface of my entire system. I mean, we have, but so they kind of back off those arrows a little bit. So I'm looking for something called jerking, which happens on this trade, but you can't really see it. I don't want to get into these things the very first test. I want to look for a jerk, especially in this environment, especially with the way the order flow is coming in and the lack of volatility. There's this thing called a jerk where the market will puke a little bit, kind of like a mini slip or a mini reclaim, because the market will hit these areas and they'll fake you out at least once. And I want to wait for that sort of fake out where it kind of pukes, but then it rotates back in. I want to wait for that fake out. Now, on this specific trade, I get in, I wait for it, but it never happens. And then I get in it, and as soon as I get in it, they fucking do the jerk. That's more advanced shit. But for the sake of it, you can watch it on the coffee to hear me talk about it and more better description of it. That's not the point of this module. I just want to point that out there. A little too early on this. Let's go up a little bit. So at this point, it's just ES is already going. So I guess, we could have done the arrows and it would have drifted back on us a little bit at that time. But this becomes a problem where it's stagger crossing and you don't get the alignment that sometimes you need to maybe be a little aggressive and just go for it. So looking at this, we're just kind of watching it. So let's watch it as it comes up into the highest nodes, which is right here. I'm looking for overshoot. Because I think I can get a little bit of overshoot at this time. Russell being up here is good. Now, Russell could probably maybe play its own version of pocket pool in this section. However, when I'm leaning on low nodes and going from distribution zone to distribution zone, I rather lean on the low nodes than anticipate pocket pool. If it's really, if I get into it, we're gonna take a loss if it ends up becoming a pocket pool territory, and then I just have to identify that. Russell ripping up, which is good. So the highest node's at 97. Now watch this. This is where it gets really interesting. So I'm looking at like 15.75s to get out of this. I think Russell hits 97 even. So I cancel it. I'm like, I might get overshoot. Russell rolls. Now it's between two high nodes. This is kind of a mini volcano top. Not sure if I talk about that in one of the prior modules. It's not a main subject. So I start to realize that I just might not get what I need out of this thing. Now, there goes Russell. Now, watch Russell's going to hit the 97 even. And even Russell will cleanly rotate a point of control. Like, yeah, it's overshooting. Oh, well, actually, that overshot a lot higher than I thought. I thought it would actually rotate that. My bad, guys. So now she's kind of on a low node. This shit is fucking stuck as fuck. So somebody in the prior videos says, I don't think Russell drags. And it's like, it does, and then it doesn't. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. If Russell is set up and I think it can, I'll bet on that. If there's other things going on. But sometimes it doesn't. But it does. And there's plenty of video talking about it dragging. So I'm like, fuck, at this point. I realize this is going to come all the way back. So I realize this is going to all come back. I'm checking the charts here. So at this point, I realize it's going to all come back, and I need to make a fucking decision. So we get out. Which was actually a really good call, because at that point, it does collapse in. And we will see that here on the chart. Right? So it's like, where is it? So it's like at this point, it does drift up a little bit, but there's more collapse right here before it drifts back up, but it never fully goes back up. And I really can't find out because, like, I'm in trouble and I need to fix my bankroll. So we fixed the bankroll, and at this point, we're net break even, gross 400 in the hole or some shit. Listen to fucking music right now. Probably saw that. Good channel. It's called Drift Deeper, by the way, if you like dub techno. Anyways, let's look at the next trade. So unfortunately, like, because I'm like, well, this could take a moment. See, this is where it drifts back up. I'm like, all right, I'm not sure if we're going to keep up drifting. I'm not sure if this is, like, going to keep channeling up. So and then I start to realize that, hey, this is going to dump. And I hit the recording right after I get in the trade, so we don't get to see that. And then the stream actually dies before we see the exit. However, on Twitter, I say, hey, I think it could go to 675 before it hits 675, and then it overshoots. Should have held out for the overshoots. Again, guys, I am a developing trader. I am still learning. This is very advanced shit, and you never stop learning. You only keep getting better and better. Well, maybe not everybody, because not everybody breaks down shit like this, and really, you know, most people just sit here and trade, and they don't do the work that it takes to get good at it. So we're in right here. So there's something, I get the jerk, which is the auction vista. That is a 3-second auction vista of the NQ, which NQ auction vista is really used for precision timing. Some of my older videos before correlations, I used it all the time with ES. Now it's kind of useless in ES because, like, you don't have the volatility in ES. So since there's a lack of volatility, it's a lot harder to time out ES trades than it has in the past. So the NQ having higher amounts of volatility is peeling back a layer and being able to chop, or being able to time ES better, because what happens is ES will get stuck in a 2-tick, 3-tick, 4-tick range at times, where NQ could be on its own journey going through this auction process. And you can use that micro auction process to time ES better. Not the subject of this video, just want to share it. So we're in this fucking thing because we got something called the jerk, which I talk about. You're going to have to just watch the coffees to know what that is. So we're sitting in it here, and then unfortunately the fucking thing goes down. So we're kind of at that threshold area, 94.6. Again, we know that this is that really low node you can see behind my head. So if Russell can cross this low node and pull to 93s, that's going to help drag ES down, god damn it. So here's your fucking proof. Especially since NQ is now on the mean. NQ's on the fucking actual high node right here. So it's an uphill battle down here. So NQ could get stuck here. It could pivot here. NQ initially drags the price down. And ES is kind of in a weird spot that the higher node is at 10. Okay, the higher node is at 10. So from 825 up to 1075. This is sort of a little lumpier spot. That 10 is also a psych number, 10 even, that we could also get stuck here. However, Russell, being at a threshold, can potentially drag the market down. So let's watch it. So for the gentleman that needs more evidence, and he was very nice, by the way. He said, with all due respect, the thing is, the content is there. You gotta look. You got to watch it. You got to consume it. You got to pay attention. However, this is just me showing you, hey, what's up? So I hope the fuck it shows it crossing that threshold, which it doesn't. It starts to bounce back in. And then we fucking, you know, that. Well, it doesn't show it because the fucking footage dies. So this is 1246. Let's go look at Russell at 1246. Now, it's bouncing back because we're kind of in this lumpier, higher node area. Let's go look at 1246 on Russell. So here's Russell, and this is what Russell's curve looked like at 1246 before the fucking footage died. You can see it's churning up into this motherfucker. And look at that. It is actually playing pocket pool to some degree. As well, just to kind of prove the point of it. Like you can see that like it's a little goofier. You know, you kind of get a micro pullback to the value area high here. They sort of overshoot the POC. They come down to the low node. So the low node holds. They hit the midpoint, which I would count, because this is a volcano top, I would count all of this as a POC. Even though it dips in, I would count from this node to here and look at it as one giant node. And they're pivoting it several times. And then this low node's really getting compressed. And then, you know, they end up just crossing this threshold. And then the gravitational pull of this curve sucks us down. And again, ES and NQ, especially NQ at the time, was on the highest node of the session. So Russell does help pull. And there's other nuances that happen in the order flow. Other things such as if there's a sweep across all three market, like if some of these markets sweep, they'll all sweep at exactly the same time. And then they'll stop sweeping at the same time and go in the same direction. So there's connection. All these markets are interconnected. There are algos hedging and connecting all of these markets, whether it's arbitrage, and sure, there may not be much edge in it, but the moment there is edge in arbitrage, something's going to take it immediately, and it's going to keep the markets kind of like connected. Now, all of these markets do have their moments where they drift away from each other. However, there's moments where they all sync. Okay? And, yeah, I mean, That's the thing. It does. It does. Okay. So, and when I see these weird order flow nuances across all three at the same time, that is proof that there is some form of connection there. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video on Pocket Pool, and I hope you learned something from this. I hope that you can leverage this to keep yourself out of trouble. Don't necessarily trade it, and we'll see you in the next video. Until then, check out these other videos. Spaceship.